وبركاته. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين ولا عدوان إلا على الظالمين ولا عاقبة للمتقين. اللهم صل وسلم وبارك على عبدك ورسولك محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم تسليما كثيرا. Dear brothers and sisters, first and foremost, if I can have everyone's silence, inshallah, everyone's attention. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Quran, وَاذْكُرْ فِي الْكِتَابِ إِبْرَاهِيمَ إِنَّهُ كَانَ صِدِّيقًا نَبِيًّا. And make mention in the book of Ibrahim alayhi salam because he was a man of truth, Siddiq Nabiyya, and a prophet. And today we really try to dig a little bit into the tafsir of the meaning of the word Siddiq. Because truthfulness in at least our modern daily usage of the English language, at least when we say truthfulness, what we usually mean is truthfulness in what? Truthfulness in? I'm trying to get some out of you. Speech, not truthfulness in tongue. Truthfulness in speech, right? Usually when we say tell the truth, we mean tell the truth with your tongue, speak the truth, right? Or, in father language, tell the truth, right? That's what tell the truth. That's what truthfulness means, right? Now, in Islam, it's so much more than that. So much more than that. And there's many different ways to understand this. Number one, yes, speaking the truth, and as the Mufassirin say, Siddiq mulazima sidqin lam yakdhib qat, that the person has to tell the truth, he never lies. A person who's used to telling the truth. And we remember the hadith of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam from Ibn Mas'ud radiallahu anhu in Sahih Muslim, that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, "Inna as-sidqa yahdi ila al-birr." That truthfulness, so this is telling the truth, leads to righteousness. Wa inna al-birra yahdi ila al-jannah, and righteousness leads to paradise. And the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, "Inna ar-rajula la yasduq," that verily a person tells the truth to an extent, hatta yuktaba siddiqa, until he's written with Allah. Allah has your name, siddiqa, a truthful person. And then the Prophet ﷺ said, "Inna al-kadhib," that very lying, yahdi ila al-fujur, it leads you to open shamelessness and sin against Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Wa inna al-fujur, and then that type of disobedience, yahdi ila an-nar, that leads you to hellfire. So the Prophet ﷺ then said, "Inna ar-rajula la yakdhib," that verily a person will lie, hatta yuktaba kadhab, that a person will lie until he's written with Allah, liar, right? And this is something that's very significant, as we said. Once you get into the habit of lying, you'll never stop. You'll never stop. It's not that you fell into lying one time here and there. You felt the pressure of a situation, so you lied to get yourself out of that situation. It's not that. Once you get used to lying about everything, then you'll become a liar. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will brand you as a liar. And when you're raised on the Day of Judgment, it'll be, where is the kadhab? Because that's what Imam an-Nawawi rahimahullah said. I didn't mention that in the khutbah. Think about that. Allah on the Day of Judgment, when He calls you, this is what an-Nawawi rahimahullah said in his sharh, in his explanation of the hadith. Allah will say, where's the liar? Where's the kadhab? Which liar? So-and-so. Bring the liar over here. Right? So being extremely careful when you speak, making sure that you don't lie. And subhanAllah, lying always catches up to you in life. Always, always. You get into the habit of lying, it's going to catch up to you somehow in life. Right? And once people, understand, or once people catch you in a lie, then nothing you say will ever have credibility again. Right? You guys know the story of the boy who cried wolf. It's not a hadith. Very powerful story though, honestly. This story shook me when I was a kid. Right? And the story was basically that there's the boy who was entrusted with watching the sheep, and he was told by his people that whenever a wolf comes, what do? You cry wolf, wolf, right? So one time he cried wolf, wolf. Everybody came running out, and then they saw that there was no wolf. He was lying. He played a joke, right? Second time he did it, everybody came out, no wolf. Third time, an actual wolf came and started devouring all of the sheep, and he cried, wolf, 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 wolf. Nobody came out. Nobody came out. So in the process, he lost everything. And that really happens in life, subhanAllah. Anytime you're a liar, things catch up with you in life. people start catching you in your lies and your credibility goes away. Most importantly, your credibility with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala goes away. So lying in speech is something extremely hated in Islam, to the point that the Prophet ﷺ said, a Muslim, a believer, might fall, a mu'min might fall into zina, adultery, or theft, or like a really, really major sin, but the believer can't be a liar. He cannot be a liar. That's such a hated attribute that once he has that, as an acquired trait, then he's actually nullifying his own belief. SubhanAllah. Making sure you speak the truth. What else did we talk about? What else falls under the category of truthfulness? Those of you who attended today. What else? Truthfulness in... Bilal, what's up? In what? What else?
Action.
Huh?
Action.
Truthfulness in action? A little more specific.
In promises.
Truthfulness in your promises? Okay. Truthfulness in your actions. Truthfulness in your intentions. When you say you're going to do something with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, how much do you really try to do that thing? Or when you say to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, or when you make the intention to do something, because we always say make the intention. And let me give you guys an example of this, alright? How many times have we sat in this halaqah, and I said, everyone make the intention to come to Fajr. How many people are going to start coming to Fajr? A lot of people raised their hands, a lot of people said, yeah, we're going to do it. I'm looking all of you in the eyes. So if you think I'm targeting you, it's all of you. It's targeting. Right? Oh, I'm going to start coming to Fajr. I'm going to start coming to Fajr. But while you're saying it, you're probably telling yourself, like, I'm really not going to be coming to Fajr every day. Who am I kidding? I'm only kidding myself. Shaitan comes and casts doubts on your intention. And you even know. You know that you're not telling the truth. You know that you're making this up. Right? Because sometimes we say things in the heat of the moment, but we don't really mean it. Right? There's a very beautiful da'i by the name of Talib Abdul Rashid, who's one of the people who accepted Islam on the hand of Imam Siraj al-Hajj. And this guy, subhanAllah, used to be involved in a lot of drugs. And he was telling me the story one time. He said that one time when he was running away from the cops, that's when he first started to realize this tawheed, calling upon Allah, because that's when you start calling upon Allah when bad things happen in life. And he's calling on Allah and he's saying, oh Allah, I promise you I'm going to quit. I promise you I'm going to quit this. I promise you I'm going to quit that. But he said that even while I was saying that, I was being selective with my words. And I was thinking about, and I was already trying to think of the back door. I was already trying to think of the excuse I'm going to make to not quit. Right? So already whenever you're making the intention to start doing this and to leave the sin and to come to the, whatever it is, to acquire this good deed, you're already putting in the back of your mind, what are the loopholes here? It's like when you're signing a contract, you want to make sure that the fine print is in your favor. Right? So even when you're making your intention with Allah, you're already making sure the fine print is in your favor. Right? And that's why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala called Ismail alayhi salam sadiq al-wa'id. He was truthful to his promise. Ismail alayhi salam, his dad comes to him to slaughter him. His dad's going to kill him. And he says to his dad, he says, did Allah command you to do this? Yes. He said, if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala commanded you to do this, then you're going to find me amongst those who are patient. I'm not going to complain about it. That's one thing, but whenever your dad goes, shh, what's going to happen then? Whoa, dad, I'm a prophet. You're a prophet. Chill. Don't do this. We don't need to do it this way. Just say, La ilaha illallah, it's all going to be okay. You don't have to kill me now. No, he just sat there and he looked at his dad. He waited. Okay, Allah commanded you to do this. If I told you I'm going to be patient, I'm going to be patient. So whenever you make an intention with Allah, make sure that you're serious about it. Make sure that while you're saying what you're saying, while you're making that intention, you really mean it. Oh Allah, I'm going to change. Right? And sometimes even when we're making dua, you try to make your language vague. Right? Because you're trying to make sure that you can still leave yourself a loophole. Now there's two extremes here. And the Sahaba discouraged both of these extremes. One of those extremes is to take oaths on yourself. Right? To say, oh Allah, I swear to you and I swear by this and I swear by that. I'm going to quit this. If I don't quit this, may you destroy my house and send lightning on me. Don't take oaths on yourself because you might fall back. And Allah is merciful enough to accept you if you make tawbah again. Right? The other extreme is when you're not even willing to say, you're not willing to make any promises to Allah. You're not willing to make any promises to Allah. So you're not really truthful with your words. You're not truthful with your intention. And you know what? Once the time comes where you need Allah, you always need Allah. But when you feel like you need Allah because everyone else has turned their backs upon you, and you start calling upon Allah, you expect Allah to answer you just like that, without any questions asked. And then when Allah doesn't answer you, say, how come God doesn't love me? Why doesn't Allah answer me? Right? I tried dua. The Imam kept talking about dua. Mom, Dad kept talking about dua. Where is Allah now? Why didn't Allah help me in this situation? Why didn't Allah help me in that situation? And you forgot all of the empty promises, the broken promises you made with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, all of the intentions that you made. Oh Allah, I'm going to start reading this much Quran. Oh Allah, I'm going to start, I'm going to stop committing this sin. Oh Allah, I'm going to stop doing this. You know how many times, how many of you guys are on Facebook, be honest? I know some of you are lying. Just talk about that. It's okay, right? Everything can be used for halal and haram, right? It's okay, guys. How many times have you seen people say, I'm going to deactivate my Facebook, and I'm never going to get on Facebook again? And then 2 weeks later, they're back on Facebook doing the same thing. It's like, I'm going to deactivate Facebook, and I'm never going to do this again, because I don't want to talk to girls anymore, and I want to make sure that I do the right thing, and I want to make sure that my life is halal, and I'm changing now. Deactivate. Then 2 weeks later, reactivated. Then you see in the news feed, blank blank says to blank blank, what's up, bro? It's like, wait, what happened? You just said 2 weeks ago you were quitting. You deactivated. What happened? You didn't even believe yourself whenever you said you were quitting. You weren't truthful to yourself, so how do you expect your action to go through? Your intention wasn't real. Your intention wasn't truthful. Right? It's just like this. You tell me, if you tell me, let's say that you did something to hurt me. You cursed me out. And I say, look man, I'm not going to be your friend anymore if you keep cursing me out. I'm not going to talk to you anymore. And you say, alright, I promise you, I'm not going to curse you out anymore. Next time we have a fight, you curse. Then I say, look, I already told you, alright, I quit. The third time you do it, the fourth time you do it, what am I going to say? I'll be like, you know what? You know you're lying. You and I both know that you're not telling the truth. Make sure when you make a promise to Allah, you don't have hesitation, you don't use vague language, you don't think of the loopholes. Oh Allah, I promise you I'm going to do this. Oh Allah, I promise you I'm going to do that. Right? A lot of people, let me tell you what happens whenever you get older, right? A lot of people will make this oath with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. When I get rich, I'm going to give money. When I get rich, I'm going to give 25% of my wealth fi sabilillah. Then when they get rich, they start thinking, well, what 25% am I talking about? Am I talking about 25% of my retained earnings after my lavish vacations and after buying my lavish this and lavish that? What am I talking about here? You start trying to twist the language and find the loophole. But when you're truthful with Allah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will not hesitate to answer you. And I'll give you this example, and I'm remembering this hadith, by the way, off the top of my head, so I might forget one of these things. 3 men in a cave. Rasulullah ﷺ tells us about them. They're trapped in a cave. A stone has trapped them. They're trapped by a boulder. So they all say to each other, let's make dua to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala with our good deeds to remove this stone. Let's start remembering the things that we did. So and saying those things so that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will remove it. Right? And there's 3 situations. I can remember 2 off the top of my head. I might think of the third one as I say it. One person says, oh Allah, I had a situation. Basically, he had a girl who needed help, and he gave her charity. She was a cousin of his. She was related to him. And he gave her charity, helped her out of a tough situation, on the condition that she would get intimate with him. She would commit zina with him. And just as he was approaching her, she said, do not overstep what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has forbidden. Right? So he said, I backed off and I said, right then and there. I could have done it. I was in a position where I could have done exactly what I said I was going to do. But out of my fear for you, I stepped back. Right? So the boulder moved a little bit. And another one was a person who said that I had some food and some drink and I had my family at home. And they were, they were hungry and they were thirsty. And by the way, I'm qualifying the statement from now. The hadith is something like this, so it's not exactly this wording because I'm remembering off the top of my head. Maybe Salam, if you remember the hadith, you can help me. Do you remember the hadith?
I'll help you, inshallah.
Okay. He goes so he says that I had some food and some drink and I was going, and my family was hungry and needed it, but I knew that my parents needed it too. Right? So he went to his parents, and his parents were sleeping. So he could have left his parents' house and he could have took that over to his own family and given them the food and the drink. But instead, he waited there and he waited by his parents' side until they woke up, and then he gave them the food and the drink. Right? So he makes dua to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala by that. Oh Allah, you know the situation that I was in. And I could have easily just ignored them and moved on with my life, but I didn't. And that was only out of the fear of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So the boulder moved. Does anyone remember the third one?
Isn't it the man who came and left him some sheep or some goats, and he raised them, and then he had them. When they were...
Then he gave it back to him when he came back.
And when the man
After
came
a few
back,
years back.
Give me the whole thing.
The man had a worker, and then the worker forgot his bag of seed, and then he raised a bunch of sheep with it, and he gave him the sheep, and the worker came back for his pay.
After a few years, he demanded.
He had just a few.
All of you are telling. I'm trying to see who knows it best. So Song, what is it? Final word.
What was the first part you said? He left some seeds?
Yeah, he had the payment for the work was a bag of seeds, and
It was some dirham or seeds. It was some dirhams he left, and he bought some ships, and then he raised the ships, and then after a few years the other man came back and demanded that these ships, where's my money? And the man told, with that money I raised these ships, so you can take all of them.
Okay, so a man took a wage for some seeds. This is the gist of it. And he raised some sheep for that person, and he took that money, he took it as a loan. Whenever the person came back asking for the money, he told him, I used that money to raise all of these sheep, and he gave that sheep, all of it, to that person. All out of fear of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He did not get cheap with it, so it hurt him with his money. And he made dua to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You know that I was telling the truth in this situation. You know, oh Allah, I was in a situation where I could have cheated, but I didn't. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala caused that boulder to move out of the way completely. The point is that three men that were in a very tough situation, but they feared Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. They were truthful with what they said to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Meaning, whenever you say that you're going to do something for Allah, make sure that you really believe yourself when you say it. Don't let it be half-hearted, right? You know, and this is something that's extremely important, especially in the society that we live in. Let me tell you why. Let me put it to you this way. What is halal and what is haram is extremely blurred. No one really knows what's halal and what's haram anymore, because no one bothers to go look into it. I judge what's halal and what's haram based upon what my culture says, based upon what my family sees as halal and haram. So whenever I want to do something right, or whenever I want to start doing something halal, I don't bother to go find out what the Prophet ﷺ said about this and what the actuality of this is. I just do it, right? And I'll do it according to my standards, right? So, you know, I want to do this, I want to do that, I want to start applying this, I want to start applying that. Making sure that you're honest with yourself enough to go and find out, is this halal or is this haram? You know, some people, when you tell them that something is haram, they say, man, why did you have to tell me? I was doing fine. You know, you could have left me ignorant. If I was ignorant, then I wouldn't have been charged for it. Some people go out of their way to find out their practices. When I get into this business, when I do this, when I do that, you know, my dress, the way that I do this, the way that I'm acting with this person, is it halal or is it haram? They go into detail trying to find it, not based upon their desires. They go and they try to find the most correct position based upon correctness, what is closest to Allah and His Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Not based upon, you know, this will fit me more and this is more lenient and this will fit me more. Right? Now here's the last thing. And this is what the message that I really want you guys to take home. Do not fool yourself with what is haram. If you forget everything I said in this halaqah, don't fool yourself with what is haram. Right? You know something in front of you is not right. You know something that you're doing is not right. Don't let Shaitan give you all of those fatwas, give you all of those things that you want to hear so that you can convince yourself that it's right. You have to be honest enough with yourself to say, you know what, I don't feel too comfortable with this. Let me go figure it out. Let me go check this out. Let me go ask about this. Don't just take things at face value and then try to rationalize everything so that you can make everything halal. Because once you do that, you're leading yourself to destruction. So what I'm going to do, inshallah, I'm going to show you guys a video. This video is Sheikh Kamal Makki. So this is a new show that they started in Canada. It's called Amongst the Few, ATF, the ATF YouTube channel. Right? And it has a bunch of little khawatir and things of that by some of the brothers and things of the sort. So anyway, this one, it's actually 10 minutes long. I'm just going to show you guys the last 6 minutes. Inshallah, then we'll talk about that afterwards. Alright? So this one's called Brownie Surprise. Okay? I fast forwarded through the beginning. Someone hit the lights? So it's a brownie. About being honest and truthful with yourself and with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala.
Hello, and welcome to my fast forward. This used to happen to me, and I used to tell...
Brownie surprise.
So like I said, we're going to make brownie surprise. And this is a very nice and wholesome dessert that you can make and enjoy with your family. And I have all the ingredients that you need for this dessert. The first thing, you do need 1 egg. And as you can see in this bowl, I have 1 egg. And this is actually a free-range chicken, vegetarian fed, and so it's organic eggs, because we want only the best ingredients for this meal. The second thing you would need is a box of brownie mix, and this just happens to be my favorite brand, which is a Betty Crocker, and so this is a box of Betty Crocker brownie mix, and as you can see, I've already emptied the contents into this bowl right here. Now the last thing we need is 1/4 of a cup of vegetable oil, and I have that already over here, and of course, a big bowl so you can mix all the ingredients into, and I have here also a glass baking pan. Now you can use the metal baking pan if you like, but I actually like the glass baking pans because the brownies and the things don't stick to it after you get it out of the oven. And the last, but not least, the last and most important ingredient, the surprise. Together in the bowl. Now I know what you might be asking yourself. You might be thinking, isn't it bad for us to put such an ingredient with the brownies? Well, first of all, I'd like to tell you that you don't have to worry. I actually am a certified professional food manager. And this is not a joke or a gimmick for the show. I really am a certified professional food manager. So I know what I'm doing, so don't argue with me. So now we're going to start mixing the ingredients into our bowl. I'm going to start by emptying out, putting the brownie mix into the bowl. I'm going to add my 1 egg. And now I add the oil, make sure you get all of it in there. And of course, last but not least, our special ingredient. Once you have all that in there, you can use a wire whisk or you can use a fork to mix everything together. Once you've got a nice blend, start to empty it out into your baking pan. I'm using a silicone spatula to make sure I get every drop of our goodness into the baking pan. So now we're going to put it in the oven. And I'm going to set my oven to 350 degrees, and we're going to put it in for about 30 to 33 minutes. While the brownies are cooking in the oven, let me explain to you the story behind Brownie Surprise. Basically, the story goes is that there were a bunch of kids who wanted to watch this movie, and their father refused because he said there were certain scenes that were not appropriate. And the kids then argued with him that there is a lot of good in the movie, that only a few scenes are dirty, or just 1 scene is dirty, and then the rest, it has the best effects, it has the greatest actors in it, and so on and so forth. So the majority of the film is good, just a little bit of bad won't make the entire experience a bad experience. And so the father wanted to prove his point to them. So the story goes that evening, he cooked some brownies, and he put dog poop in the brownies. And then he offered the brownies, the kids rushed at them, and then he told them, wait, there's 1 ingredient in the brownies. I did put some dog poop in it, and so would you continue eating. And so the kids, they all refuse to say, we don't want to eat this stuff. And so he tells them, why not? And he used the same argument that they gave. It's just a little of it that's dirty, and the rest of it is all good ingredients. So the kids understood that even though a little was bad and the majority was good, it still made the whole thing bad. Just like when it comes to the brownies, the same thing should apply to the movies. And the story goes that from that point on, whenever the kids would say, there's a movie that's out and it has a few scenes in it, but they would ask permission from their father, can we go and see it? He would tell them, would you like me to cook up a batch of brownies? Okay, so that's it for this week's episode of ATF Channel. I would like you to share with me down there some of the things that you left for the sake of Allah. Tell me more of this stuff and how it helped and how it improved your life, and how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala replaced you with better. Don't forget, next week Muhammad Hassan with more of the good stuff. Thanks for watching. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
It's not over yet. Sheikh Kamal Makki is the coolest Sheikh I've ever met in my life.
Good, huh? What's this?
That's the end. Alright, so there's still a very, very important moral in the story. By the way, I cut through half of it. Everybody got the point. And it's a very, very, very good point, because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala alludes to it in the Quran. By the way, Sheikh Kamal Makki is a master's degree from Medina University. He just likes to do this kind of stuff to prove his point. And it's actually a really good channel. If you go look it up, amongst a few ATF, every week, they started doing this a few months ago, every week they release a fatihah. It's really, really, really nice. The point is, again, it's a really, really important point. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Quran, Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu, or do not, or Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, when He addresses those who believe, لِمَا تَلْبِسُ الْحَقَّ بِالْبَاطِلِ. He's talking about Bani Israel actually. لِمَا تَلْبِسُ الْحَقَّ بِالْبَاطِلِ وَتَكْتُمُ الْحَقَّ وَأَنْتُمْ تَعْلَمُونَ. Do not dress your truth with falsehood. Don't dress something that's good with something that's not good and then try to make it all good. And then hide the truth, which you know to be the truth, when you know exactly what you're doing. Right? And this would stop a lot of excuses. And Imam Hassan al-Basri rahimahullah said, when the human being stops making excuses for himself, Shaitan has no madkhal inside of him. Shaitan has no entrance inside of him. Because essentially, all Shaitan does for you is he constantly makes excuses for you. She's just a friend and all that type of stuff. I don't really look at her as a girlfriend. I don't really think anything's haram. We just talk, we just smile, we just laugh. We're not flirting, we're just being friendly. Whenever I touch her, I'm not actually touching her like in that way. I never really mean that kind of stuff. At the end of the day, you're really just fooling yourself. But you can't fool Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You can't fool Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So if you lie to yourself, at the end of the day, you alone, and you're the one that's going to be held accountable. Right? And subhanAllah, like when a sister starts to wear hijab, and hijab is everything should be covered except for the face and the hands, but then the dresses start to come up to like right here, and then right here, and then right here, and then the pants start to come up like mid-calf and stuff like that. You're not fooling anybody. You're not fooling anybody. You're only fooling yourself. At the end of the day, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is going to hold you accountable. I'm sorry if that was offensive. But it's a fact. Don't lie to yourself. Don't lie to yourself. When Allah reveals something to you, don't lie to yourself. When you know something is true and Allah and His Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam say stop there, don't say, well, it's not all that bad, and most of it is good, and this is okay, and this is okay, and this is okay. Why do you got to focus on the bad stuff? Because at the end of the day, you're going to meet Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala with that sin, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the one who is most merciful with you. He already gave you enough halal. He already gave you enough things that you could do to make your life easy and to make your life halal. You don't have to go looking around for the haram. You don't have to go lying and disguising the truth so that you can make your life a little bit more convenient. So we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to bless us, inshallah. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to make us firm on the truth. Who's going to be my 2-minute reflection guy right now? If no one comes forward, I'm gonna point him out. I'm gonna call somebody out. Don't go back to this. Come on, you guys were doing so good, mashallah. Don't go back to this. You gotta be confident. Say, I'm gonna reflect on this. Just 2 minutes, inshallah. 2 minutes, just share your advice. All of you? Even my khatibs are gone? What happened? You guys are gonna be doing khutbah next month. Don't make me leave feeling like a failure. Come on, somebody who's gonna reflect for 2 minutes, inshallah. I'm gonna leave the microphone right here.
Allah ya shabab.
I know you're not going to shy away, so. Jazakallah.
Bismillah, salatu wassalamu ala rasulullah, sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Inshallah, I think the Imam covered the topic pretty well during the khutbah and during the youth halaqah. I think I'm just going to add just a little bit of a twist, inshallah. So, in the topic of being truthful, when you want to be truthful, you want to be truthful with yourself, truthful with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, in terms of everything that we talked about today. But you don't necessarily have to tell everything, the whole story, inshallah. So, when it comes to being truthful, something that happened, something that you did, you don't necessarily have to tell everybody about everything that you did, all the sins and everything like that. Some of the people, like for example, I have a person that I work with, and he'll start telling about himself and what he did that day and what else happened, and he's in a position of leadership. And then the person, the other people have heard, oh, you did this and you did that, and you're supposed to be the leader, and how can we trust you, and things like that, you know what I mean? So when we want to be truthful, we don't necessarily have to say everything about ourselves. And I think I had mentioned once before, there's a man who came to the Prophet ﷺ, and Omar radiallahu anhu was in their presence. And he said, oh, Messenger of Allah, I did this, and this with this woman, right? And then Umar radiallahu anhu said, oh, you had revealed yourself after Allah had screened you, right? Allah, it means that he had committed this sin, but Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala had covered it for him, so everybody else didn't know about this sin. And then, to make the long story short, this man, he gets upset and he leaves, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala reveals the ayah, following up a bad deed with a good deed. But whatever the case was in this case, this person was talking about his sins. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala although he made this sin, this is between him and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and the person that he made the sin with. So you should seek forgiveness for your sins, but you don't have to make it apparent. So I'm just adding a little bit to the being truthful, inshallah. Is that enough?
Yeah.
So exposing your sins is an exception to that. Barakallahu feek. The only time that you should expose your sin is when? When should you expose your sin?
It would benefit when you've murdered somebody.
What's that?
When you've murdered.
Huh? When you're seeking help, right? So Islam doesn't say hide your sin. If it's not like the elephant in the room type thing where you ignore it. Seeking help for it is something that the ulama have said you can do. So if it's a sin that you need help with, seeking advice how to get over with it, how to get over it, then there's nothing wrong with seeking advice for it, inshallah. But other than that, you don't have to go out and blur out everything that you do if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala concealed you, because that lessens your chance of redemption, right, of really redeeming yourself. Anybody have any questions? Anyone want to add anything? No? Nothing? Hesitation? Yeah. I knew you'd come through.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. What was just said was really amazing, mashallah, and I'm pretty sure it applies to each and every one of us. But one thing that I was thinking about was, when we're being truthful, you can tell sometimes it's a lot harder and a lot easier in different circumstances. And one way that I found, I know this topic has been covered a lot, but basically it's the group that you're surrounded by. And if you basically feel comfortable with your sin and in that gathering, then even being truthful about it is no use, because you're not holding yourself accountable, and you have no help in that. But if you are in a group where if you forget to hold yourself accountable for messing up or slipping up on your own intentions, you have your friends there to hold you accountable. So I guess I was just thinking about this would be like, it's made a lot easier if you're in the right setting with the right group. And if you're not, it becomes harder and harder until basically you forgot what you're doing in the first place. That's all I had.
And the last thing, I'll just mention this. Make sure you don't just believe in Allah and the Messenger ﷺ, make sure you believe Allah and the Messenger ﷺ. When you see something in the Quran, when you see something in the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ, don't hesitate. Don't sit there and try to analyze it with your own logic and say, well, this doesn't make more sense, this doesn't make more sense, this doesn't make more sense. You have to believe Allah and the Messenger ﷺ, not just believe in Allah and the Messenger ﷺ, because those are two totally different things. And what made Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu as-Siddiq, the truthful one, when the Prophet ﷺ comes to him and says, Abu Bakr, I'm a prophet, okay, I believe you, what do you want me to do? Abu Bakr, I went, from Jerusalem to Mecca, from Mecca to Jerusalem to the heavens and came back in one night, I believe you. There is absolutely no hesitation in accepting that from Allah and the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Right? So accepting what comes from Allah and the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam is also an aspect of following the truth. Anybody else want to add anything? Any of you guys? Yeah.
Something that my father used to tell me a lot when I was saying should talk about khutbah and everything and intentions, reminded me, any one of us naturally, whatever we do, there's a way to benefit us, give us more motivation to do it. And truthfulness is more than one meaning to it. There's many variations of it. And one of the things you mentioned that I really like is being truthful to oneself. And my dad used to always say, even if you go do something that may be halal for you, it can always benefit you. That you can always change your intention. Like, for instance, you can say, I'm going to go meet up with my friend to do so-and-so, go swimming. Make the intention to also do it for the sake of Allah. And now you have a benefit to it. Just like if we were going to go play a sport and then someone says, hey, I'm going to pay you to play the sport, we're going to do it because we're going to do something where we have fun and we get a benefit from it. So we can do the same thing with our intentions, and that's one thing that hit me and I thought about. That was good to know.
Yeah.
Any of you, and I would never do this, but I'm going to do it right now. If you get a chance to attend next week's khutbah, then do that inshallah, because I'm going to tell a story about someone who's very beloved and a modern day person who really embodies being truthful to oneself. So if you get a chance, inshallah, do come to the khutbah, inshallah ta'ala. I wanted to tell it today, but I didn't want to start the story and then have to cut it short, like I did with the other stories. So we'll talk about that inshallah also next week. Anybody else? Anyone else? Hesitation. You guys are caving in them one by one. I'm not going to force you to talk. Anybody else? خلاص? طيب. جزاكم الله خير. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت أستغفرك وأتوب إليك. Try your best to make it to the convention next week, inshallah, in Houston. It's going to be really amazing, inshallah. And I hope that I'll see all of you guys there. Assalamu alaikum.